This is the rarest U.S.
Now, when the election comes up in '04, this is very interesting. You know what they're going to be talking about? Medicare, Medicaid, and the environment. Just what they've been doing forever, and they're going to use the children. Hillary Clinton's favorite refrain, it's always about the children. How about talking about the Iraqi children who have just been taken out of the torture chambers? Does that matter to any of the Democrats? That's what this was all about. I personally don't care if they find 1 ounce of anthrax. I don't care if they find 1 milligram or 1 centigram of plutonium. It doesn't matter to me. If the war was about liberating these people, that was enough for me. They don't get it. There's a blind spot in the mind of the liberal. You know why? Because liberalism in its extremes is not a political orientation. It's a mental disorder.
Warning, the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, and psychological nudity. Viewer discretion is advised.
You're watching MSNBC. Now, best-selling author and one of America's most popular radio personalities, Michael Savage, on the Savage Nation.
Another Saturday, I had to live through another week of Hollywood idiocy, liberal media bias, the Democrat machine pushing socialized medicine, pushing aside the victory in Iraq as though it never happened. It's an amazing thing to be alive at interesting times, and I'm sure you share that sentiment with me. One of the topics today on the Savage Nation is the SARS deal. Now, I got into the media by talking about immigrants and epidemics, and nobody would publish that. Even though I had previously published 18 books, nobody in New York would touch immigrants and epidemics for political reasons. This is, I'm talking 10, 12 years ago. So I got so angry, I made a video, an audio tape, sent it out, got into the media and all of that. Now, before I talk about all the topics today, including SARS, I've got to back up and I've got to establish my credentials. I'm not an ordinary talk show host. I'm not a guy who was a disc jockey who got lucky. I am a trained scientist with a PhD in epidemiology and nutrition from the University of California at Berkeley, and I'm damn proud of it. I worked real hard for it. I have 2 prior master's degrees. I did research for years. I traveled in the South Pacific for years collecting medicinal plants. I have an established track record in these fields. Now, having said that, we're going to look at the SARS epidemic from the point of view of a rational immigration and public health policy and an irrational immigration and public health policy, which is operational in America today. That is going to be a big topic today on the Savage Nation. We're also going to talk about the Hollywood idiots on the Savage Nation. It's such an easy one. I'm going to ask you if you can guess who is going to win the prize. But before we go to the Hollywood idiot, I skipped over something I should have told you, which is a very important question, which is this. Has the SARS epidemic changed your travel plans in any way? Should you decide not to go anywhere? Or have you decided not to go anywhere? 1-888-MSNBC-USA. Question for you on the Savage Nation. Should the border with Canada be closed until this epidemic is under control? I understand the Canadians don't want it, but since most of them are French, who cares anyway? Topic number 3, Hollywood idiots. Who do you think is going to win it this week? Very easy. You can pretty much figure this one out, but I'll let you decide. Where's my my Oscar award or whatever it is? Back there? Well, we don't have it in the yellow liquid. We're not allowed to show it in the yellow liquid. No, I'm sorry. If it was a cross, we could put it in yellow liquid. That's permissible in the American media, but a mock-up of the Academy Award we can't put in the yellow liquid. It's liable to offend somebody in Hollywood. Okay, well, we won't do that. We're going to talk about which celebrities are profiteering from anti-war protesting. Oh, they're getting up there and saying that they were damaged, they were harmed, their careers are ruined. They never did so well. Most of these jerks, their careers were over. Ed Asinine, what was the last thing he was in? I don't know what he played. I don't know when. But his latest role is, Senator McCarthy, where are you? Because he expects, with this guy talking, you think McCarthy is on his left shoulder. So you're going to find out who's making money on their anti-war gimmick. All of them. Then we're going to talk about media bias, particularly focusing on CNN. We have a great guest, Ted Kavanaugh, ex-CNN executive, who is going to tell you a lot about the connections between the liberal bias at CNN in particular and how they got in to see Saddam Hussein, what trades were made. And I'm going to ask him about Danny Boy Rather's rather embarrassing interview a couple of weeks ago where Rather was practically on a prayer rug in front of Saddam, not throwing him softballs, but giving him a shoe shine. This is an astounding story that will come out today on the Savage Nation. Then we're going to move on to a very sad story. Not easy to run, not easy to watch, not easy to talk about. Lacey Peterson, partial birth abortion, which I consider to be infanticide. The nerve of people calling the little boy, the fetus, 8 months in the womb, they're calling it an it. Should we call a fetus an it? 1-888 MSNBC USA. And for those of you who think we ought to call baby Connor, that is Lacey's baby, an it, do me a big favor. Why don't you pick up a telephone and try to tell that to the weeping, grieving grandparents? Also today, we're going to go to the universal health care issue. Those are code words for socialized medicine. But here we are. The war is behind us. After all, only 4 soldiers died yesterday in Afghanistan. People are still dying. They're uncovering skulls of the tens of thousands of people who were tortured, humiliated, and killed. But to the Hollywood people and to the Democrat left, oh, the war is behind us. Well, so here they go back to form. Medicare, Medicaid, and the environment. Medicare, Medicaid, and the environment. And here comes center stage Dick Gephardt with his call for free medical care for all. If you want to know what America's medical system will look like should we enact this dopey system of free medical care for everybody, you don't have to go any further than 80 miles south of Florida. Go to Havana and you'll see what universal health care will bring to America. You're going to see doctors in dirty smocks with broken equipment or no equipment and a lack of medicine on the shelves with fifth-rate physicians. We don't need universal health care. What we need to do is have universal self-care, number one, teach people how to take care of themselves. Number two, we got to stop giving out freebies to illegal aliens who shouldn't be here to begin with. And that's another question for you. Should we stop providing free health care to illegal aliens? 1-888 MSNBC USA from anywhere in America. And if you get on this show, you're going to speak to more people than you meet for the rest of your life. And those are some of the topics that I want to talk about today. But before we do, I got to show you a picture. I got to give out a prize right now. And this picture is amazing. If you guys can come in on this, you know, normally I ridicule the old York Times. I'll bring it down so you can see it and hold it steady. Get that old steady cam on that picture. This was Friday. I want to congratulate the team at the New York Times, not because the picture's gruesome, but because it's a real-some picture, the reality of it. You've got the fools on the left driving around with their self-righteous bumper stickers saying, "No war in Iraq." Tell that to the hundreds of thousands of souls that are buried over there. You see the skull? You see the grieving relatives? You see the skull crying out? This is a Pulitzer Prize-winning picture. This one picture says it all. This is what the war was all about. Yeah, maybe there was something about oil. Maybe there was something about territorial imperative. But it was largely about the decency of America and the liberation of the Iraqi people. So those are the topics here on the Savage Nation. If any of them seem to attract your attention, 1-888 MSNBC USA is the phone number to call me, Michael Savage, and talk to the rest of America. Again, the topics: how I got into the media, immigrants and epidemics, SARS, Hollywood idiot, media bias, Lacey Peterson, universal health care. I don't know if I have time, but I got loads of callers. They better be better this week, I'll tell you that. If I get someone calling me and say, Mike, how are you this week? You don't know me. Please don't ask me how I am. We're not friends. Let's make this a vigorous discussion. Let's re-educate America. Let's show the Hollywood idiots that we have a brain, that all of us people on the right are not, like, slow in the brain, because we don't use the drugs, the sex, and the rock and roll that they do. Do we? Or do you? All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. The show is power-packed. When I come back, I'll take your calls. We're going to go on to SARS. We're going to talk about whether or not you want the borders closed right here on the Savage Nation. Be here or be nowhere.
We do believe that this disease can be contained and can be eradicated, but we are in a very narrow window of opportunity, and we need to take this opportunity right now. Certainly, if the appropriate measures are not put in place, there is a risk that this disease can become endemic and established in human populations, and this is why WHO is taking the aggressive measures that we have been taking and trying to build this global collaboration to make this our best attempt to put this disease back in the box.
Thumbs down. There is no international collaboration. There's an international cover-up. And I will tell you why. Because all of our major health service agencies have been taken over by political hacks. The true scientists were thrown out 10 years ago. They have been taken over by phonies like that, in my opinion, who talk about collaboration and meetings and going and showing each other slides. We have an epidemic that's spreading, and it could be stopped tomorrow. It could have been stopped 2 weeks ago if they did the right thing. But because of political reasons, not for public health reasons, they're sitting on their hands and they're idling and they're fiddling, frankly, while the epidemic is spreading. And we're going to talk about that. Question, why has the CDC failed to stop the spread of SARS in America? I'm going to tell you why. Number 2 question for you on the Savage Nation. Would you cancel a trip to a city that's having a SARS outbreak? Or, hey, no big E, you'll just wear a mask. 3, should we close the borders to Canada? I have nothing against Canadians. I like Canadian people, by the way. So that's not the issue. The issue is controlling a disease, okay? And finally, should we ban all immigration now? Should we ban all immigration now, period? What about the impact of immigrants who are coming across the border illegally? Why are we letting them do this? How do we know they're not carrying SARS or another epidemic-type disease? So those are the topics I want to talk about. Let me go back to the fundamentals. What would I do if I was in charge of the CDC? What I would have done is, first of all, 4 weeks ago, when the first cases started to come out of China, I wouldn't have hidden it. Do you notice how long it's taken for the mainstream media to let you know that there's actual an epicenter to this disease? Yeah, the epicenter's a region of China, a primitive southern region of China, where they do an ecological raising of animals. You know how they do that? Would you like to hear it? I'll tell you right now. They take the pig dung and they feed the pig dung to the chickens. The chickens eat the pig dung, then the chickens do their droppings that go into the pond, and then the fish eat the chicken droppings. And what you have is various virons from one animal and another cross-hatching with each other and creating these super bugs, and we now have SARS. That's the current theory. And so it's going to go, it has gone probably from this animal model and animal background into the human condition from eating the chicken or the fish or the pig. And that's called a zoonotic infection. And since they knew this, China covered it up first, but we had an inkling a long time ago that it was coming out of China. What they could have done was stop all immigrants and all visitors coming in from China until the epidemic was controlled. But no, they didn't want to offend anybody. No, they didn't want to offend the Chinese people. They'd rather have an epidemic spread than stop the spread of an epidemic. You see, that's the whole thing. And so I want to talk about that. You've got to get the politicians out of the CDC and put the scientists back, if there are any left out there who know what's going on. Questions. Would you cancel a trip to a city that is having a SARS outbreak? Yes or no, and why? Should we close the borders to Canada? Should we ban all immigrants right now? Carol, in Miami, Florida, thank you for calling. Welcome to the Savage Nation. What would you do?
We are canceling our trips this year. We visit my family in Texas. We visit my husband's family in Norway, and I don't want to fly.
Well, wait a minute. Even flying in America, there's no risk there, is there?
I don't. I'm sorry. I know the air is recirculated on airplanes. No way.
So you're not going anywhere? How about a trailer? Can't you get a trailer and travel over there?
I don't think I would do that. Thank you very much.
Oh, Carol, come on. Now
if I can't fly,
yeah,
we're not going to go.
Oh, my God.
No, I don't like
Well, Carol, let's slow down the panic. There's such a thing as rational controls and irrational. Flying to Hong Kong is irrational. Flying to Guangdong Province. Wait, flying from here to Guangdong Province would be irrational. But flying from Miami, Florida, Texas, I think is hysterical, frankly.
Sorry.
You're
That's
not going.
the way I feel.
All right,
because
you're
you don't
Sarzy.
know who else is on the plane.
All right, you're very Sarzy. I appreciate that. She's very Sarzy. That's all there is to it. Thank you for calling. Mary in Miami, Florida. Welcome to the Savage Nation. Topic, please. What's on your mind?
Yes, hello.
Yes.
Yes, I've got a comment with regards
Well,
to
go make the comment. Make it.
Well, you know, you have immigrants in that you have a comment about us taking care of them with Medicare. But let me tell you something.
Yes.
The U.S. citizens are so damn lazy that they won't do the work necessary that the immigrants do in the United States. Now, mind you,
Hold it. You made your point. Hold it. First of all, do a close-up on that picture back there before we get started. If you think I'm a standard immigrant basher, you're wrong. I am the son of an immigrant. That's my grandmother and grandfather.
But you know what?
Hey, whoa, turn it down. You wait a minute. It's my show, not yours.
Okay.
Go back into the ether. Shut her off. Let me answer this woman, because I heard this lousy argument before. Americans are too lazy to do the work that the hard-working immigrant does. How do you explain the 30 or 40 million bums in America who do nothing, who collect welfare? They're the ones who should be forced to work in the fields, on the farms, and in the hotels for their welfare check. There's plenty of people in this country who are living off the fat of the land. This is the kind of people, these are the kind of people who used to do the menial labor, but because we created a welfare state, there's no incentive for them to do it. So the solution here is to close the borders, stop the illegal immigrants, and put the healthy bums to work on these jobs, collecting the fruit for us, picking the vegetables for us, cleaning up in the hotels, working in the factories. Nobody wants to do that work. But in the past generations, the people who were not fit for anything else did those things. Today, they sit at home, watch TV, and collect a welfare check. So I would solve the problem by stopping the flood, the immigrant invasion, and putting the able-bodied illegal immigrants, the able-bodied, worthless welfare recipients to work. It's as simple as that. 1-888-MSNBC USA. Should we close the borders to Canada? Have you canceled a trip to a city that's having a SARS outbreak? That's the question I asked. Not have you canceled a trip around the corner to the grocery store. That's the real question. And those are the questions I think are worth talking about. In the next segment, we're going to go also to the Hollywood Idiot of the Week here on the Savage Nation. Who is going to win the Hollywood Idiot Prize? You'll have to stay tuned to see, because I myself don't know who's going to get it yet. But we'll check it out and see when I come back right here. Let's see what he said. Oh, he said that it was an accident. He said 911 was an accident. He's implying that the Islamo-fascists accidentally hijacked our planes, I guess, and that the Islamo-fascists accidentally slammed them into the World Trade Center. That was all an accident, according to the Hollywood Idiot. But the war was no accident at all. To him, it was all about oil. Yeah, it's all about oil. Show him the skull picture. You'll see it's all about oil. Celebrities profiteering from anti-war ranting. All of them are winning by attacking America while claiming that they're being ostracized and victimized. This is Michael Savage. Be here or be nowhere. Here we are back. Now I have to do the favorite segment of the week, which is, it's so easy. It gets easier. It's like hitting softballs out of the park, you know. It's like a home run every time. Every week they make my life easier. What you have today is an amazing story. You have the phonies in Hollywood, who are actors after all. Hey, let me back off for a minute. I love movies as much as you, maybe more. I watch them every night. Fantastic. Professional jobs. I enjoy them every evening. And I enjoy the fact that we have freedom of speech. They're entitled to their opinion. But please, don't get up there in Hollywood and claim that you're being ostracized like it's the McCarthy period and you're suffering for it. Because according to the Washington Post, lefty celebs like Mr. and Mrs. Susan Saran Wrap, Janine Garofalo, and the rest of the Hollywood crowd are actually getting rich from their anti-American activism. Did you know that? Oh, they say they're losing. But Tim Robbins, that's Mr. Saran Wrap, and his wife both continue to get work even with bad track records at the box office. And even though Sarandon's 56 years old, most actresses at that age are already on the scrap heap. Garofalo says that she now has offers from sitcoms for stage roles. Could you believe this? And admits that she's more famous now than she was before she took up the anti-war cause, okay? This is what's going on here. By the way, she still hasn't made the public apology that she said she'd make if the Iraqi people welcomed the coalition forces. What I want to do, hold on, before we go on to the next one, where's that newspaper? That's the one I really need, because I want to make sure America doesn't miss this picture. I want an apology. Lynette, hold this up for the camera, will you please? Let's go in on this. I want to make sure America sees this skull. For all the Hollywood idiots, this is what the war was all about. And tell that to Mrs. Garofalo and the other self-righteous phonies. It was not about them. It was about the hundreds of thousands of Iraqis who were laid in shallow graves without names. Okay, that's what it was all about. Now, then we got the other one. We got Mr. Duct Tape. Mr. Duct Tape, Marty No Spleen. He keeps working on the West Wing, right? Not true for his co-star, Rob Lowe, who the producers told to take a walk. Now, Lowe supported the president's Iraq policy. Is this a coincidence? Let's slow down for a minute. We hear from the Hollywood left that they're being blacklisted, if you can believe it. They got it all backwards. There's no blacklist in Hollywood. There is a red list. And unless you're on that red list, you don't work in Hollywood. If you are a conservative, you need not apply. Or if you want to keep your politics to yourself, I suppose you can get yourself a job as a water boy. So it's all backwards again. They're playing the role of the victim when in fact they are the victimizer. Then we have the case of the fat guy who is popping up everywhere, whose name, the unmentioned fat guy. The guy who has no talent whatsoever. This guy said he's had interest in reviving his TV series, even though it went nowhere the first time it was on. He wrote an autobiography called The Strange Confessions of an Idiotic, Stupid Fat Man. I think you can find it on the bestseller list. Of course I know the name. I'm not going to read it. I'm going to put a black tape over my lips before I say that. And then, of course, there's the ditzy chicks. I named them that 3 weeks ago. After Bush bashing, their album sales laid an egg. But now, they're back up to #1 on the country charts. How did that happen? Don't the fans of country music remember? But for Hollywood idiots, there's no such thing as bad publicity. Not at all. They never, ever lose. Of course, none of these are the winners, ladies and gentlemen. The winner is, and we have to have the Libby. We'll just grab that Libby as quickly as possible. The winner is, you know who it is. It's old Ed Asinine. That's right, a man who hasn't been in a role, except for this role of playing the victimized man of McCarthy. His last role was, I think, when I was still in diapers, so as I can remember. Ed Asinine this week had the audacity to go on CNN and say that when a blacklist happens, it affects thousands of performers, and that the blacklisting tends to seal their lips. Yes, sir, we do have a list in Hollywood, Ed. It's called a red list, and you run it.
Sunday at 10, just taking off.
Why can't reporters report on what's happening instead of what might happen if all of these variables happen to occur? The plan is to increase the number of U.S. forces if they're necessary and to decrease them if they're not necessary. To get as many other countries participating coalition forces in there as I possibly can, and to the extent I can, have fewer U.S. forces, and to the extent I cannot, have more U.S. forces. That is the plan.
Well, Rumsfeld came out as a big winner, obviously, because he was right all along. The big losers are the radical leftists in the media who try to diss the defense secretary, try to disrespect the president, try to put down the troops. They shifted gears, thank God, along the way. Thank God for them, and thank God for America. But with us now on the Savage Nation to talk about media bias, especially the Crescent News Network, CNN, is Ted Kavanaugh, who knows from the inside. Mr. Kavanaugh, welcome to the Savage Nation.
Good to be here.
Now, please tell the listeners what you did at CNN so they don't just think that you're talking from the outside. You were right on the inside, correct?
I was one of the original founders of CNN, one of the 4 editorial people who went down there and started it. We started it in 1980. Then I became the person who they asked to develop headline news. I started that, I ran that, and then I ran the first investigative unit for CNN. I was there about 8.5 years.
Ted, when I look at headline news, I've said it to you the other day when we spoke, it's like watching Al Jazeera. It seems to be disconnected from America. Is that CNN's direct attempt to be an international news organization rather than one that represents America in any way?
Headline news I don't know about, because that really takes parts of CNN and replays it. But CNN considers itself not an American television network. They've said this for a decade. They are an international global network. And that's why I'm coming on these programs, because we didn't start CNN for that purpose. They don't consider themselves to be Americans. And because of that, they can play a certain game saying, we show all sides of the story, the way you do on a local story here, perhaps in the States. But they do it internationally. So as far as they were concerned, Saddam Hussein and Bill Clinton or anybody else or George Bush in his time were all balanced off equally. They had 2 networks, by the way, 2 major networks. They also have CNN International. I
want to react to that. This is what's driving me nuts for years. You know, you and I are in a split screen right now. We're co-equals, which is fine because I'm interviewing you and it's someone I want on my show. But if we had a split screen with President Bush on one side and Saddam Hussein on the other, the viewer would think that they're equally decent men and equally important men. And the media's been doing this for at least 20 years. They put the criminal here, and they put the prosecutor here, as though the guy who was just accused of mutilating his wife and baby is equal to the policeman who arrested him. The whole thing's upside down. The moral equivalency is killing us, Ted. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, I do. And let me give you an example of what happened. A reporter named Collins, he was a reporter for CNN in Baghdad, and he said back in the Clinton era that the president of CNN then, Tom Johnson, and Easton Jordan went over to Baghdad, and he saw them virtually groveling. He used the word groveling before the Iraqi information people, offering CNN, offering an hour to Saddam Hussein to come on the same day, for 1 hour, the same day that Bill Clinton was being inaugurated. They were going to balance those two off.
Isn't that amazing? Well, you talk about groveling. The issue going from CNN to CBS worries me greatly. We watched, all of us watched, Dan Rather's exclusive interview 3-4 weeks ago with Saddam Hussein. It was embarrassing. Now, I understand that he was in some danger, and I respect that. But tell me if this would have been wrong. You're a professional journalist. I'm a commentator and an educated man, but I'm not a journalist. I don't pretend to be. But would this not have been journalism that after Rather did this set-up softball interview with Saddam, and he had his exclusive, and he got back to wherever he was in a safe nation, and he put the piece together, that he then runs some of the footage of the hundreds of thousands of gassed Kurds and others, and the torture stuff, everything we've been hearing about, to put in context who this man, this nice grandfatherly man in a business suit, Saddam Hussein, was?
Well, the answer to your question, he did that once, I think I recall, during that interview. The fact is, he shouldn't have gone over there and thrown softball questions at him. I was on MSNBC the night before that interview was played, and I said, that is what's going to happen. That's disgraceful that he goes over there because they are going to be used for Iraqi propaganda, and that's exactly what happened. He should have asked the tough questions. If he was afraid to ask them, he should not have gone.
Well, talking about CBS, Ted, you're an insider again. I don't know these players. Last Sunday night, I sat with my tongue hanging out. I couldn't believe what I was watching. I watched Ed Bradley, the fellow with the earring, interviewing folks over in Lebanon with Hezbollah. And it looked to me as though it was a public relations piece. They spoke to the mullah, who was the head, the spiritual head of Hezbollah, who's talking about killing and murdering and maiming. And Ed Bradley doesn't say one word to him such as, excuse me, sir, you are a holy man. You represent yourself as a religious man. How can you then represent yourself as a religious man if you're encouraging Hezbollah to go and kill innocent Israelis? Why wouldn't he say that? Isn't that journalism to ask a question like that?
Well, it would seem to be, and because the fellow he was interviewing said that he was not, you know, they were not involved with 9/11, and they don't believe in these kind of things. It's awful, it's terrible, these kind of murders. What Ed Bradley did not say and should have said on the air was that they have a long track record of killing Americans. Ed Bradley had Senator Graham on, who mentioned a 25-year period. Ed Bradley said, that's right, and he mentioned the killing of the Marines,
yes,
the 51 Marines. What he didn't mention was the fact that they were hijacking airplanes, Hezbollah, that they hauled one American who was a naval diver off one of those planes they hijacked from Athens and murdered him. They have committed a lot of crimes which Ed Bradley failed to mention, and he knows very well because they vet those pieces carefully before they go on what those people have been doing. So he could have asked that man, how about your security chief, a well-known terrorist who has performed all these acts? Do you disavow those acts?
Right.
He never asked him. He never said when the fellow said we have to use suicide bombers.
Right.
He never
Why
said.
didn't he ask that? Why didn't he ask that?
Well, he should have asked it.
And what about this, Ted? During the war, I heard reporters in the field, the embedded reporters, make statements such as this. These were American reporters. They said, the Americans are moving northward at this time. And I said to myself, he's an American. Why couldn't the reporter say, we are moving forward? Would any reporter in World War II have distanced himself from the boys fighting and dying on the beaches of Guadalcanal? Well, I can't imagine that.
Let me say first that Ed Bradley did not mention that the Koran does not allow for suicide bombers to go straight to hell, which we hope they all did. But as far as those saying we're American, there's a new theory out called objectivity and so forth and so on. And by the way, a recent update on that is that the head of BBC has denounced Fox News and other media for their patriotic statements during this war.
I saw that.
You saw it. By the way, what he doesn't know, if he doesn't know his own history of BBC, was during World War I, BBC used to play these secret coded messages so that the resistance forces would know when to act. In fact, during D-Day, they gave a certain poem twice. That was the signal that the attack was about to happen and a warning to the French resistance to get on the move and start their sabotage. He doesn't understand what BBC did in the old days when BBC was patriotic. And in the old days, when America was patriotic and people like Ernie Pyle were in the field, they never would say objectively, you know, these are Americans over here, and we are objective people with no point of view.
Hey, Ted, if we had guys like that in the news business in 1940, I guess most of us would be speaking German or we'd be lampshades, eh?
That is exactly correct.
I mean, that's what we'd be today. It's unbelievable to me that we have to put up with this. And, you know, talk about objectivity. One of my studies along the way was anthropology, and I spent years in the South Seas and all that. But I remember in the early days of anthropology, we were told there's no such thing as objectivity in when you go visit primitive villages, because the minute you insert yourself into a primitive village, you have changed the structure of that village. They become different people. So for a reporter to say that they're objective is unto itself a subjective lie.
Well, isn't it true, you're an anthropologist, that Margaret Mead, I think, went to Samoa and came back with all these theories about free love?
All wrong.
And they were all wrong, exactly. Scientists went later on and found out it was all baloney.
It was all made up?
It was all made up.
Ted, we're almost out of time here, but you are doing the greatest job in America, and by being an insider who's opening up a door into this, maybe we can teach these fellas that it's okay to be a we instead of a them, and it's okay to help a country at war when you're living in it.
May I say, to close out, that, by the way, the universities who are training up these young journalists, all these colleges, are overwhelmingly, into 90 percentile, run by liberal teachers. And they're being brainwashed, and they get into journalism and bring those ideas with them.
Red diaper doper babies, they're the ones we have to talk about, the RDDBs. And incidentally, Ted, I recommend a good book, The Savage Nation, where I disclose who the red diaper doper babies are in America. Red diaper doper babies. They're running the universities, they're running the journalism departments, and they're running the courts. I'll be right back, right here on The Savage Nation, to talk about Laci Peterson. Should the fellow who is going to be tried for her murder be tried for double homicide? Or is the little fetus an it, as a major women's organization seems to think? Is Connor an it? 1-888 MSNBC USA. That's the next topic. Be here or be nowhere. I'm Michael Savage. Well, we had a lot of fiery topics so far. Let me review for you. If you just tuned in, what you missed was media bias, CNN. We missed the Hollywood idiot. We missed the SARS epidemic. I asked questions on all of those topics. In a few minutes, we're going to talk about should the killer of Laci Peterson, whoever it may be charged with a double homicide, or does that fetus not count as a baby? Because he had a name, and the grandmother's heart is broken, and the grandfather's heart is broken, and that's forever. But right now, I want to go back to the callers from the top. John in Cincinnati, welcome to the Savage Nation. Topic, please. What's on your mind?
Left is trying to destroy this country, you know, and just decimate the
well, there's no question of bias. Look at the last guest I just had on told us that back in World War I, the media was used to give the military a step up over the enemy. In World War II, we were told the BBC was used to give signals to set off some bombs here and there by the underground. Why is it so hard for these people to understand that a nation either pulls together or it blows up and falls apart, John?
They're still wearing their lousy diapers, you know, from kindergarten.
You like my red diaper doper baby analogy?
Yes, sir,
because that's
sure
what they're
do.
wearing. People don't know what an RDDB is. RDDB. Red diaper doper baby. A red diaper baby is someone who was raised by parents in the communist ideology. You may think I'm making that up. They were raised to worship Karl Marx and socialism. And they were sent to camps that talked about the glories of the revolution in Russia. This is an actual reality in America. Well, many of these 1950s kids grew up in the 60s as teenagers and college kids. They then took on marijuana. Red diaper doper baby. When you put dope into the red diapers, what you wind up with is a guy with a ponytail running a university journalism department, or a guy with a ponytail in a black robe who attacks the police and supports the criminal. That's called a red diaper doper baby, a term that I defined for you in the Savage Nation book. Juanita in Phoenix, you want to talk with us about SARS and Scott Peterson. You're on the Savage Nation. Question or comment, please.
Yes, about SARS, I think that, yes, they should close the border.
Amen.
We should not take a chance. And about Scott Peterson, yes, they should try him as with double murder.
Well, tell me why. Now, look, I agree with you. They should try him if he's the one who's being tried. The woman was 8 months pregnant. The fetus had a name. It was called Connor, not it. The grandmother you're going to see in a minute, her heart is broken, and so is the grandfather forever, as any living human being would be. How could this woman from the National Organization for Women say that it shouldn't be a double homicide? Did you hear that, Juanita, this week?
Yes, I did.
How'd you feel when you heard someone said that he shouldn't be tried for a double homicide? How did that affect you?
Well, it affected me a lot because, you know what? That shows you how many ignorant people we have in this world.
Juanita, can I ask you something? You live in Phoenix, Arizona. Do you listen to my radio show out there?
No, I really listen to the TV show on
Well, you got to find me on radio, Juanita, because I think you'll be electrified by your opinions being reflected. Honest to God. That's the absolute truth. Okay, 1-888 MSNBC USA. Let's run some of the wonderful footage to go with the horrible segment. It's a frightening segment. I want you to first listen to the heartbreak so that you'll understand the context of a fetus who is a person. Can we have that one, please? That's what we want the people to see.
I miss her every minute of every day. My heart aches for her and Connor. Without them, there's a huge void in my life. I literally get sick to my stomach when I allow myself to think about what may have happened to them. No parent should ever have to think about the way their child was murdered. In my mind, I keep hearing Lacey say to me, Mom, please find me and Connor and bring us home. I'm scared. Please don't leave us out here all alone. I want to come home. Please don't stop looking for us. I feel that Lacey and Connor could no longer wait to be found, so last week they came to us. Soon after Lacey went missing, I made a promise to her that if she has been harmed, we will seek justice for her and Connor and make sure that that person responsible for their deaths will be punished. I can only hope that the sound of Lacey's voice begging for her life and begging for the life of her unborn child is heard over and over and over again in the mind of that person every day for the rest of his life.
Well, I'm almost speechless, which is, you know, I don't want to make a mockery, but Sharon Rocha said it for all of us. This is a woman whose heart is broken. But you notice she said for Connor and Lacey? This is a woman who understands that a fetus at 8 months is a person. There's a soul in there. And the ghouls in the abortion racket ought to be ashamed of themselves, particularly those of you who practice so-called late-term abortion, which is nothing more than infanticide. I don't want to show you the gruesome photos. Do we have the full screen of the Morris County now President Mavra Stark, who said that there's something about this that bothers me a little bit? She says, was it born or was it unborn? Look at this. Was it born or was it unborn? If it was unborn, she said, then I can't see charging Peterson with a double murder. Well, lady, let me tell you something. You need to get a life, and you need to get re-educated. If you think that this isn't it, I would invite you to watch that tape that I just played of the heartbroken grandparents over and over again. You'll know that it's not an it. And maybe it'll enlighten you to the fact that human life is precious. Every human life is precious. Should Lacey's unborn baby be called it? Absolutely not. Should Scott be tried for double homicide? Absolutely. Should the unborn, such as these, be permitted to be ripped out of a womb, their skulls broken open, and their brains sucked out in a procedure called late-term abortion? It was outlawed by Congress, if you remember, when Clinton was president. Both the House and the Senate said no to this gruesome, barbaric procedure. Bill Clinton vetoed it. He catered to the abortion lobby. When this issue comes up again, I want you to make certain that your representative, I don't care if you're a Democrat or Republican, you've got to do the right thing for humanity. Just say no to late-term abortion. We can all agree on that, can't we? I would hope so. Isn't there anything we can agree upon? Or has everything got to be agenda-driven? How about something being human-driven? How about putting human rights ahead of agenda? Is that ever going to happen in America? I hope so. That's what I've been trying to do on this show ever since I started in my book and on my radio show. When I come back, I'll take your calls on this and other topics right here at 1-888-MSNBC USA. The next topic's going to be universal health care, which is nothing but a code word for socialized medicine. And if you want to see how that works, go to Cuba. This is Michael Savage. I'll be right back. Be here or be nowhere.
How come Democrats in Congress aren't standing up for universal health insurance for every single American? Harry Truman put that in the Democratic platform in 1948. It's been 55 years. We can do better, and we're going to do better with your help.
Yeah, who's going to pay for it, Dodo? I mean, I recognize you're from Vermont, the Rainbow State, but the fact of the matter is it sounds good, but who's going to pay for it? If you want to bankrupt America, there's no better way to do it than offer free medical care to everybody. Illegal alien? No problem. Come have a cardiac bypass operation on me. You just flew in with a fulminating tuberculosis? No problem. $8 million, we'll pay for it. No, sir. If you want to know what universal health care will look like if you let the Democrats pull this wool over your eyes, you don't have to go any further than Havana, Cuba. You've got fifth-rate medicine, you've got fifth-rate doctors, and you've got fifth-rate treatment. That's number one. Universal health care, ladies and gentlemen of the Savage Nation, is a code word that the Democrats use that really translates into socialized medicine. What is socialized medicine? It's a disaster. Just look at England. Just look at Canada. Just look at Cuba. Do you think that Canada has better medical care than we have? Then why do so many Canadians come across the border and pay to see a doctor in America? The answer is because we have better doctors, and you can see them faster if you pay for it, if you go to the free market. The fact of the matter is socialized medicine does not work. Oh, yes, it dispenses medicine to all, but it's not good medicine to all. It's bad medicine to all. Secondly, we have loads of free medicine in this country. We have Medicare. We have Medicaid. We've got veterans' health benefits. We've got other things that give out medical care for free. What we should be talking about to fix the broken medical system are these things. One, the lawyers. Get rid of the lawyers who are parasitizing the hospitals and the doctors with their phony tort claims. That's number one. Limit these claims. Get rid of the leeches and the parasites in the courts. That's number one. Number two, teach the people about universal self-care. Teach them about nutrition. Teach them about herbal medicine. That's right. Teach them about meditation. Teach them how to take care of minor health problems themselves without visiting costly doctors and getting costly procedures. You know, when I was a kid, I'd complain to my mother, I got a pain or I got an ache, and she'd say, Michael, we all have aches and pains. We don't have to go to a doctor for that. It'll go away. And guess what? It goes away. Now we live in a climate in America where you see a doctor, something bother you, oh, see a specialist. They put you through the electromagnetic resonance. That's $5,000. Who do you think's paying for that? You can't have it all and give it away to everybody. You can't have it, period. So we're going to talk about universal self-care. We must also greatly increase the co-payments for all Medicare and Medicaid patients. $5 is not enough. Make it $20, and that will stop people from going in just to talk to a nice young woman in a white coat. Yeah? You want to hear the big one? Because here it comes. We must also stop providing free health care to illegal aliens who are bankrupting our hospitals and our health care system. If you think I'm making this up, call up a hospital in Los Angeles or any of the border states such as Texas or Arizona, even New York City. The hospitals are going bankrupt. You cannot give the entire world free medicine. Close the borders now. I have been talking about borders, language, and culture ever since I began in the media in 1995. I brought it to my radio show. I have brought it to my book, and I'm going to show it to you again, Saving America from the Liberal Assault on Our Borders, Language, and Culture. Bestseller for 15 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. Why? You think I'm the only one who thinks this way? Maybe you would think that way if you looked at the real problems out there. And finally, the lawyers. I have to go back with that again. The lawyers are the #1 problem. You must limit the types of cases that can be brought before a court, and you must limit the amount of money that can be claimed. Once you do that, you limit borders, language, and culture, you close the borders, no medicine, okay, no treatment for illegal aliens. I'm sorry. They don't belong here to begin with. Number 2, stop the lawyers. Number 3, teach people to take care of themselves for minor complaints. And number 4, raise the co-payments. And you don't need universal self-care, Dick Gephardt, because that will bankrupt the United States of America. It's 1/7 of our economy now. If you ever made it free, it would wind up being 1/2 of it. It's been unbelievable on the Savage Nation. If you have not been able to get onto this show at 1-888-MSNBC USA, I'm sorry. The callers are lined up. Most of you are saying it was a full-term baby. Peterson is guilty for both. A fetus is a person. And forget universal health care. It's a disaster. I thank you for being with me on the Savage Nation. Remember to see me next Saturday or listen to me in your local market on the radio 5 days a week, because I work 6 days a week, because I have the work ethic, because I'm an immigrant son. Yeah, welcome to the Savage Nation. Here's what got me going this week.